back to my channel. In today's video, I'm going to show you 4 ways on how you can feed braiding hair in for knotless braids. I will show some overhand techniques as well as some underhand techniques. If you haven't watched my video on how to actually install knotless braids, that's going to be a great starting point because this will not be a total breakdown. This video is meant for someone who already knows how to create a regular single braid. So I will only be showing you where to add the hair in when you're braiding. So for this first section, I'm going to go ahead and do an overhand technique. I'll split my section into 3. And I'm going to go ahead and feed the hair in right away since this mannequin, her hair is a little bit more on the fine side. So I'm going to feed hair in right away. I'm going to feed the hair in between the pointer finger and the thumb. For most techniques, you're always going to be adding the braiding hair in between the pointer finger and the thumb. Now that top section above my pointer finger is going to get added to that right section. And I'm going to go ahead and continue to braid like I normally would, crossing over and under, over and under. So again, we're going to add our braiding hair in between my pointer finger and my thumb. Once I grab that braiding hair, I'm going to go ahead and slide my pointer finger in between the 2 sections that are being held with my left hand. I'll go ahead and do it for a 3rd time. Add my piece of braiding hair in between my pointer finger and my thumb, and then grab with my right hand, using my middle finger to help push that braiding hair up into the braid. Now I want to go ahead and switch hand positions, so I'm going to go ahead and start braiding underhanded. And in this video, I'm also going to show you a few tips and tricks on how to hide the client's hair within the braiding hair. So you always want to have the braiding hair on top of the client's hair. I'm going to feed my piece of hair into the back of the braid. I'm going to place the left side of the piece with the middle of my braid and the right side with the right side, and I'm going to continue to braid down, again with the underhand motion. So taking that piece, I'm going to add it to the middle, slide it behind the right piece, take the 2 right pieces together and use my pointer to push up into that braid. And notice how I am making sure that the mannequin's hair is behind the blue braiding hair. This is going to ensure that you're tucking your color. I'm going to go ahead and put a little product on my fingers so I can blend the mannequin's hair in with the braiding hair, making sure that I'm maintaining the mannequin's hair behind the braiding hair. And if need be, I'm going to use my comb to help blend both of the 2 hairs together. As you can see, these ends are very blunt, so you really want to make sure that you're adding product to help blend it. Also, I'm going to use my comb, spread this out, and then I'm going to take this right section. I'm going to kind of start to cover the back of the hair as well. So what I want to do is try to make sure the client's hair is in between the braiding hair, fully covered on the back and on the front, because if it's not covered in the back, then the hair will stick out as well. Okay, now this section is completely done, and as you can see, there's barely any type of hair from the mannequin that you can see other than what's at the top. Now we're going to go ahead and start with our second section here. Starting off with our 3 pieces again, we're going to go ahead into another overhand technique. Now with this overhand technique, it's you're going to still braid the same exact way, starting with using your pointer finger to pull the middle piece in between. But for this, I'm going to use my ring finger, my left hand, to hold the braiding hair. And then I'm going to take that right piece and slide it in between my pointer and my thumb. So this is just feeding in one piece instead of the whole piece. I'm going to braid down. And then I'm going to take that piece that's left hanging and I'm going to add it into where my pointer and my thumb is. Not at the top with the middle piece, but always make sure you're feeding your pieces where your middle finger and your thumb are. So I'm going to do that again. So I'm going to do the same thing here, but instead of using my ring finger to hold it, I'm just going to stick it up there with my comb, just to show you that if holding it with your other hand is a little bit difficult, that's fine. You can just push it out of your way, lay it over a clip or something. The same thing. Make sure you're not adding it at the top with your middle piece, you're adding it in between your pointer and your thumb. Now I'm going to go ahead and switch to underhand technique. This is going to be just like with the braid we just did. Nothing's going to change here. We're going to still feed in our hair the same exact way. Feeding it in from the back of the braid, adding the left piece to the middle piece that is hanging of the braid, using my pointer finger to push that piece up into those 2 sections and turn. Now, I actually don't braid like this normally. This is just a technique that I'm showing you guys. I actually braid with my thumbs, pushing the piece up in the middle. So just like right now, I'm using my thumb, but I'm switching over to use my pointer just to show you guys the visual of how to do this. This is not typically how I braid. I use my thumb to hold the piece, and I can hold the pieces with no problems with my thumb. Making sure we're tucking our colors, so same exact thing as we did with the first braid. Just all you have to do is make sure the client's hair is pushed behind the braiding hair to get full coverage. And for me, anytime I braid, whether the braiding hair is the same color as the client's hair or not, I always tuck. Always. Always, always, always. That is going to give longevity to your client's braids. Also, I am a huge advocate for washing your hair while you have braids in. If the person who does your hair is not tucking your hair in the braiding hair, trust me, when you wash your hair, you will have excessive frizz. In order for you to wash your hair while you're doing it and to minimize frizz, You got to get someone who's giving you quality braids, and they're just not of high quality if they're not tucking your hair regardless of what the color is. Okay, now we got our second braid here complete and finished. If I was to hold this up, it's nice and flat, it's flush. The ponytail would be amazing if my client wanted to wear a bun or anything like that. It's all about the way you start off your braid and using smaller pieces. So here for our third section, we're gonna go ahead and do an underhand technique. So again, if you haven't watched my previous video on how to do knotless braids, that's going to be a good video to watch, because I'm not going to break down how to braid underhand. I'm just breaking down where to put your piece. So again, your piece is always going in between your pointer finger and your thumb. I'm going to slide it in there. That piece that's at the bottom, I'm going to hold it with my ring finger and my pinky. I'm going to pull my top piece over to my right and go ahead and continue to braid as I would as for an underhanded braid. Again, we're going to add a piece here on this side. Take that piece and add it in between my middle finger and my pointer finger, holding the bottom piece with my ring and my pinky, and continue my underhanded braid, using my pointer finger on my right to hold that hair taut to the scalp. So this video is definitely still a beginner friendly video. However, this is not for the person who doesn't know how to actually create a braid. You have to know if you're an underhanded braider or an overhanded braider already. I'm only showing placement of where to put your braiding hair and how to continue to tuck that color. The great thing about this underhanded technique is it's way easier to keep the braiding hair over the client's hair. As you can see, that I've barely had to move the mannequin's hair out of the way. When you do this technique, this underhand, you tend to get more coverage at the root of covering that hair. Do you get what I'm saying? So if you look at my two braids to the right, you can see color at the top where I started, and then about an inch down the color starts to get fully covered. Well, with this underhand technique, you tend to get full coverage of the braid from the beginning to the end. Okay, now we got our third braid done here. Again, this technique is probably going to be one of my favorites for doing full coverage. I would only do underhand technique when my client has braiding hair or wants a color that's not the same as their normal hair color, because I get more coverage with this technique, although it's not my natural way of braiding. Now going on to our fourth and final section, this is not going to be a common technique that you have seen before, but this it's a bit different, but it can be done. So you're going to take a piece of braiding hair. This is not the size that I'm gonna have for my braid. I will still feed in more hair later, but just for the purpose of starting, this is what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna split that section into two, and I'm gonna go ahead and place the hair at the base of the client's scalp. Using my middle finger, my ring finger, and my pinky, I'm gonna hold that hair nice and taut. Use my pointer fingers to split the actual client's hair or the mannequin's hair into 3 pieces. And I'm gonna start off braiding like normal. I'm just gonna do a normal braid. Going over to your right section, you're gonna go ahead and split that hair into 2. And you're gonna feed in a piece of that hair in between your pointer and your middle finger. In that right section here that I'm holding, I'm gonna go ahead and hold it taut with my fingers and then braid like normal with the other sections. Now I'm gonna use the left section. I'm gonna split that into 2, and I'm gonna add a piece of that with my pointer and my middle finger. Hold this left section here with the other hand and continue to braid like normal. This is why it's important to hold with the other hand, because if you don't, if you just let it loose, it's gonna pull and sway, and it's actually gonna be really messy, okay? Now I'm gonna add that last piece in between my pointer and my thumb and braid like normal. Now I'm gonna go ahead and switch my hand positions, and I'm gonna continue to do an underhanded braid. The thing about this way of doing this method is it gives you less flexibility. So it is a little bit more tight to the scalp, where if the client was to want to put their hair into a ponytail or a bun right away after getting their install, it's gonna be a bit tight. So I will recommend allowing the hair to grow out for 2 weeks before putting it into a ponytail, just because you don't want to cause any traction, alopecia, or any thinning or breakage or things like that. And you'll see once I pull this braid up that it has less flexibility than the other 3 braids. Again, this is not a method that you see often, but it's a method that it's an option. I'm gonna feed in hair like I did with the other 3 braids. Once you're doing the underhand technique, the way you feed in your hair is gonna be exactly the same. This one does give you the same amount of coverage as the braid before it, where you see less of the color in your client's hair. But again, this one has the least flexibility right away. Okay, now we have all 4 sections done, and as you can see, I'm going to go ahead and flip this up, and you'll see that it has less flexibility where the braid isn't laying flat to the client's scalp at all. You can see there, as I push in on it, it's barely moving. Like I said, this one has some of the least flexibility, so 9 times out of 10, when you pull this up, it would hurt if the client was to want to do a ponytail right away. So I will recommend allowing the hair to grow out for the first 2 weeks, and then you should get more flexibility. I love to hear in the comments section what you guys think about that very last technique that I've done, because I know it's something that not too many people have seen. And also let me know which one of these options are the options that you normally go for, or that you feel would be the most comfortable for you if you're a new braider. Thank you so much for tuning in to my channel. Stay tuned for my next video. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, and turn on your post notifications so you never miss an upload.